we've had a lot of transitions, and with that comes a lot of questions and a lot of dynamics trying to navigate with, the new clients and their homes and trying to figure out how to do some problem solving. There's always a lot of problem solving with new placements.
Okay, so this fall we're rolling right off a certification. I think one of the important pieces that gets missed during certification and leading up to certification is there's still referrals and there's still kids that need homes, adults that need placement. Give me an update just kind of over the past couple of months. What's that been looking like in the referral and placement world?
Well, the world did not stop during survey, which was kind of, I think, always a big shocker because we're so busy in the field trying to make sure that we are top notch. But business keeps on going. And so we had a ton of referrals during certification this year and a ton of great referrals. I think this quarter is going to be the best quarter we've had this year. We lose clients and then, of course, we bring new ones in. But with all of the craziness that was going on, we just kept moving the entire time. A lot of our program managers who were dealing with, current homes and trying to make sure everything was tip top in the field, and then also navigating new clients and trying to learn about them and getting the home situated and providing that reassurance and all of those supports when you get a new client. We killed it this year. Like we did a really, really great job of being able to navigate both of those things.
Good. I'm Staci Owen with The Hopeful Connection, and I'm sitting down with Amber Johnson to talk about placements and referrals within Restoring Hope. So welcome, Amber.
Hi.
Okay. So just catch me up a little bit on what's been going on with referrals within Restoring Hope.
So we had a lot of unique referrals this quarter. We have been working with Children's Division on bringing some clients from out of state placement. That's been really neat, something different. We did do one last year, but it was just kind of, putting our toes in the water. But this quarter we went all in. And so there's 3 kiddos from Missouri that have been getting treatment in another state that get to come back home to Missouri. And that's been really exciting, having to work with an out-of-state provider with Children's Division and coordinating all of the elements you don't typically deal with in a transition has been really exciting. A huge learning process, but it goes to show how amazing our program management and our homes are to be able to navigate. It's scary to get a new client, but they're getting clients that they have not met in person. And so I think that it goes to show what a great support we give to our homes for them to trust us enough to even attempt that.
Sure. So I know that's something you've been really excited about over the past couple of months, and I have missed out on being as involved as I would like to be in that because of other things that have been going on within the agency. So tell me a little bit more about how it elevated to the point that we have so many kids out of state receiving services, and what are the dynamics to get them back to the state that they can be then receiving services within Missouri?
So we struggle, especially with the children that qualify for our services. There's a struggle to get them the medical care, psychiatric care that they truly need. There's very limited places that will provide treatment to, we'll say, a kiddo who's nonverbal with autism, whose IQ is under 70, or they wouldn't be able to participate in group therapies. And so hospitals have to turn them away because they don't have the staffing or the system to really treat them. And so Children's Division has these kiddos who need those supports. And so they've had to look outside of Missouri. So they're utilizing places in like Louisiana and Arkansas, and particularly a hospital system in Texas, which is where the kiddos that we're taking are coming from. So it's unfortunate. Like, we want to keep Missouri kids in Missouri, but there's not the facilities there to support them. We struggle with that with hospitalizations for the kiddos that we support right now, and there's just nowhere for them to go. There's a hospital or two that are starting to kind of dive into the neuroscience part of psychiatric treatment, but in Texas, the hospital system that Children's Division is utilizing, like that's their specialty. So it's TBIs, personality disorders, Prader's, Willy, things like that there's not treatment for right here at home.
Mm-hmm. I know we've even seen that on the acute stays that, an individual is escalated. They need to meet that criteria for inpatient. And we've seen facilities in Kansas, Illinois, Arkansas, and Tennessee all been used, even on those short-term stays. So I can imagine those longer-term intensive placements are even more challenging to find in Missouri.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. And when you look at an acute stay, when you're in the moment and it's a crisis and you're like, I need this kiddo to go to a hospital. They need help. They're hurting themselves or, self-harm, banging their head or whatever it is that's going on. I need help for them. And then you call, 5 or 10 hospitals and they're like, well, what's their IQ? And you're like, it's under 70. And they're like, we can't help you. And, it's really frustrating because, they need treatment. They need help just like anybody else. And there's not a place to do that here.
Yeah. So transitioning away from the placements that we're currently working on or that you're currently working on, let's talk about just your time at Restoring Hope. How long have you been here and what have you seen really change in the years that you have been here?
So I started here in 2017. I think I've been here 8.5 years. So when I started, we could sit at a table, like a lunch table, like in school. Our team could sit around that, and it was small. I think we supported 60 clients when I started, and I mean we've grown hundreds of percents at this point, but we're up to over 300 clients, and in that time, we've learned a lot. There's been a lot of transitions that were done perfectly, and there were some that were not done perfectly, but all we've done is learn and make our systems better as we continue to grow. The most exciting aspect of it is from when I started is the amount of relationships we've built in the industry so that, we get that phone call. It's not just, looking on the database anymore. It's a phone call from, somebody with Children's Division that's like, hey, you guys helped with, this kiddo and this one is so similar, can you help us? And being able to say, yeah, I can help you. Like that's super rewarding. And over the years, it's grown and grown to where those connections are a lot stronger. And being able to have those relationships with people, it's been really neat. It's so different than when we started, but we're still doing the same work, but on such a bigger scale now.
Yeah. So talking about placement specifically, if I'm a home, and I think we get asked this so frequently with, homes that are transitioning into the onboarding process through Restoring Hope. What does the placement process look like for a home?
So there's the perfect placement process, and we can talk about what that looks like. And, we get a referral from an outside source, support coordinator, Children's Division, a guardian. We get the referral. We'll look it over. We have, several people in our placement team. We might even all look it over to come up with an idea on if we need to look across regions and things like that. Then we determine at that point by talking to the team and looking over the paperwork if we want to meet them. We try to meet all of the referrals. So, it's nothing to drive to St. Louis this week and Kansas City twice next week, to meet people. But, a lot of the placement process is intuition, because when you're dealing with a human with developmental disabilities or with mental illness, you're just dealing with one person with mental illness and disabilities. They're all very different. So going and being able to meet them in person and seeing who they are, it makes a world of difference. And I feel like if I'm going to ask a home to go and meet them, then I need to be able to go and meet them as well. So it's kind of the initial screening process. And then after that, we will look at the homes that we have that are available. It's not on a wait list type process, like you're the third, so you get the next, the third client's yours. It doesn't work like that. We have to look at a lot of different factors. Who's living in the home, what experience you have, can that client be around other children, around pets, where their trauma came from, like should they have a female caregiver or a male caregiver? There's a lot that goes into it, aside from just what region of the state can we place them in. And so we limit, we look at that, and then we kind of, limit the number of homes that we reach out to. We send out that information. And at that point, if the home is interested in meeting them, we set that up to where they can go meet them in person as well. So, paperwork it's just words on a paper. When you meet somebody in real life, you get a whole different perspective of who they are. One thing I like to tell the homes is, like if somebody wrote down my worst day and put it on paper and handed it to you to read that, you would be like, whoa, who is this person? Like, I don't want to be friends with them. Like, I don't want to work with them. But that was just my worst day. And with the people we support, that's really what is being documented. They want to know what the very worst day is for them. Which makes sense, for support reasons and things like that. But there's still a person there, and that person might have been going through something really bad at that time. So we want the homes to go meet them and have a face to that paperwork. And if at that point they decide that it could be a good fit, we like to do a pre-placement visit and then go back to the team and let the team make that decision. And I would love to get to make those decisions, but I'm not the guardian, and the guardian and the team are the ones, we all work together to determine who the best fit is after that point. After it's been decided, it could be anywhere from a couple days to a couple months before the placement occurs. And that really just depends on if they're Children's Division or Department of Mental Health. Do they already have a waiver? Those kinds of things. So there's all of that, and that's like, the typical way it works, but there's also emergency placements where I could call and be like, hey, do you have an opening right now? And this is the information that we have. They've just been removed from the, natural family's home, and they need a place to sleep tonight. They're going to be sleeping in the CD office. And those ones are risky, and we're asking a family to take a risk on somebody they've never met. But some of the best clients that we have came from an emergency placement.
Right. So I want to go back to a couple of the points that you made with the individuals. You referred to, if you've met one individual, with a developmental disability or mental health issues, you've met one individual. I feel like that's the same with the placement process. So you may have went through the placement process once, but you've really only went through it once, because I know the placement team does a really good job as far as to have our process, but it feels like the process is rarely followed in the order that it's supposed to be. Whether it's that emergency placement, whether it is the home doesn't want a ton of options, or they do want more options. So I feel like for homes, it definitely can feel, the placement process can feel very different every time they go through it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think that we'll do some of our homes that have been with us for a really long time. They've had several placements, and I think that they're so great because they're so good at just winging it, because they know that it might look this way this time and different the next time. So there definitely has to be some flexibility in being a host home, especially if you want a placement sooner rather than later, because things don't always follow a typical process. It doesn't follow a beautiful line, even though we want it to. It doesn't.
Yeah. So one of the things that I tell everyone, whether it's managers, business office, new host homes, people that are wanting referrals, that meeting an individual where they're at is the absolute best part about Restoring Hope. So tell me a little bit about your experience when you get those referrals and you're able to really go meet that kid where they're at. How does that set up the referral process and ultimately the success for that individual?
I think it ultimately, the investment level is so much stronger when you've seen them from the very beginning. There's there's clients that we have with us that when I went and met them at their residential facility or in their natural home, it is heartbreaking. Kiddos with broken limbs sitting at a hospital where staff had abused them, or it's on the news. A situation is like, the night before their parent was arrested for what happened, and here they are in our care. And it makes me, like, I know me personally, I'm so invested, and I want to do everything I can to keep them for as long as possible. Because we are the best placement that they've ever had, the best relationships that they've ever had. I feel like every program manager should go and meet clients before they're placed, even if we don't accept them, just so they can see the different variety of people that we meet. Because when you see them, in the most vulnerable state, like that is literally for them leaving their home, leaving their families, those situations, like that is their most vulnerable moment. And to watch them grow and see them with a family, a year later, like there's nothing more rewarding than that. And I joke around and I say that I have the best job at Restoring Hope. Like I still stand on that. I have the best job with Restoring Hope.
Yeah. And I think when you go meet somebody, whether it's at a CD office because they've recently been removed, or a full-time caregiver and family member has passed away that's always cared for them, or in a residential facility where they, meet the criteria at this point to get out, I think that you see them at their worst, and you have the ability to then follow their progression with a family and with the supports to be able to go up from there. And I know I have so many names that are going through my head as far as you meet them at that place. And then, 6 months or a year later, you see them at a Restoring Hope event, or you see pictures of them at different vacations, and they're unrecognizable because of the love and care and support that they've received from our homes has now transformed their whole life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we look at, it's easier to see, honestly, like trauma when it comes to like the children, like they're being removed from natural homes, or they were in a residential facility that's being shut down due to allegations. We see that and we're like, oh, that's so traumatic. But we also are having this influx, I feel like in the last few years, of aging families who can no longer care for their child. And how traumatic is that? Like this, individuals lived with their family, 45 years, and now mom and dad are too old, or mom and dad have passed away, and we're removing them from the only family they've ever known and trying to give them a new family. And so the trauma, we don't compare traumas. Trauma is trauma, and it affects everybody uniquely, but we're seeing, a different kind of trauma now, and trying to replace or add to family for individuals who really had a wonderful life. Yeah. And how can you have to live up to getting to live with your mom and dad until you're 45, and trying to find a family that can fill that same void. So it's interesting because we have it kind of, the spectrum of who we support now is so big, and where they're coming from is so big.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point as far as with some of our individuals that are older through DMH, that they have lived without services for a long time, and they have lived at home. And then, honestly, with age expectancies and modern medicine and all of that, that has definitely pushed individuals to a higher life expectancy, depending on disabilities. But same for caregivers. But it becomes a point that we have a lot of natural families that are not able to provide that level of support anymore, which is great, but those transitions can be equally as challenging to help our individuals navigate.
Yeah. And I think just being very open-minded, if you want to be a host home or a program manager, or even in our business office, to be fully aware that, the people that we support have those elements of trauma, whether it's, from the fact that they were involved in something criminal to they were just taken from the only mom and dad they've ever known. And so being trauma informed and knowing that everybody comes with that story, or with a story, is super important. And if you lose sight of that, then you lose sight of the person. And, they're not numbers, they're all people, and that deserve homes and family and supports and relationships. And knowing where they come from is a vital piece of that.
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about the placement process and the system and process that you guys use. I know, just being a little bit on the outside of it, you guys don't always hear the feedback of how successful it is. I know recently I had went back through some individuals we supported and some names, and connected with different families, and the placement process is so vital to the success of our individuals, our families, and restoring hope. So I'll give you a statistic, and it still is mind-blowing to me because of the amount of individuals we take on an emergency basis. But we support around 150, 175 children's division kiddos in residential services. And we have not given notice on a children's division kid in almost 2 years. Does that surprise you? What do you contribute that to?
It's surprising for sure, because, we have such a variety of clients that we support, but I'm also not surprised at the same time, because we have we have great systems, first of all, and such great communication. So like when a client isn't doing well with us, like how amazing is it that the team can get on board and say, you know what, this may not be the best fit. Let's look at something, whether it's a different home or different services, or even a different agency that we're not having to give notice on clients. I think that's amazing. And it goes to show the hard work that's going on in the field, and the hard work that's going on behind closed doors in those homes.
Yeah. So, and like I mentioned, as far as like the emergency placements, and you referred to it earlier, as far as, here's the placement process, and then emergency placements are totally different. It's the calls at 4:30 on a Friday going into a holiday weekend from a children's division worker that says, hey, we have this kid. He's sleeping in our office if we can't find a home for him. So explain the emergency placement process, because I know it feels like it's not the norm, but then it absolutely becomes the norm, and we'll have 8 or 10 of them in 1 month that, we receive. So what does that process look like when we get one of those calls?
So, well, like you mentioned, it's going to vary, but I feel like it always starts with that phone call, and the phone call is typically at the very end of the day on a Friday. It feels like we get the phone call, and honestly, a lot of it is the trust we have with our RCSTs, with Children's Division, the fact that they know what type of kiddos should be in a host home. And so when they call us, they already have like a little bit of a feeling like that maybe we can help them. So we take that phone call and we connect with the team. So the Children's Division worker, emergency placements, the majority of the time, even the CD worker might have very limited information on that kiddo, because it could be they were taken from their natural home that day. So we go through what we do know, even if it's very little. And we talk about dynamics, like what would be good for that kiddo. So we know that if they're, nonverbal, that we need to have a home that really specializes in that. And I mean, we do have homes that specialize in certain types of clients that they do really well with, females or nonverbal children or teenage boys. Like they all have like kind of their niche. But we go through and we talk about what we do know, and then take that information, and it can be a frantic phone call. And we have some homes that are always willing to help in an emergency, and they're a godsend. And so we are so lucky to have those homes, and we can call them and we can say, hey, we have this situation. What do you think? Sometimes we have homes that'll be like, you know what, I'm full, but like I know this home and they would do really great with them. And so then we'll call that home and get an idea. But we typically have like a good idea in our head on what type of home would be good. And then we reach out to those people. And sometimes we'll take them and we'll say, let's just try it for the weekend. Like, can we keep this kid out of the CD office for the weekend? And then at that point, the home will try it out. And, honestly, most of the time, they never leave that home. And we got it right the first time, which is amazing. And they get to stay there. And sometimes, that home can help identify the specific supports that kiddo needs, and we can get them into a different home. So an emergency placement literally can happen within a matter of a couple hours between phone call and we have a kid heading to a new host home. And the great thing is when you help outer agencies like Children's Division in a moment like that, we have to remember, like, they have families too. And when they're sleeping in the office all weekend long, or they've been in the office for 4 days and they can't find placement, we're helping them out. And in turn we're building that relationship with them. And then we have homes that get forever family members at the drop of a hat. So I would love to say that it follows any kind of procedure or any kind of, process, but it really is just kind of crazy. And the great thing is, like, I love that. I love the crazy of an emergency placement. Like, give me 5. Like, I'm always ready for those. But I think they're really rewarding too, because they're fast paced, they're kind of frantic. And a lot of those we have to work really hard in the beginning, and then the payoff is even bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. So for families that are maybe caregiving is new to them or host homes are new to them, I know one of the things that when I was doing placement many, many years ago, I would reference, like, when you take an individual, you may think that you're prepared because you've done the trainings, you have prepped your family, you've prepped the space, and then you actually take the placement. I always referred to it as no different than when you have a baby and you bring a baby home from the hospital. You think you're ready, and then now you have this new baby that you're solely responsible for, and you have no idea what you're doing, and it's not going well. I refer to that as very similar to our placement process. It takes a period of time to adjust and become successful. What are those conversations looking like with new homes to prepare them and to maybe get them through some of that initial, this is normal type thing with placements?
I think that as much as we talk about, the honeymoon period with our clients, there's a honeymoon period for everybody. That's the way it works with any new relationship. Sometimes the honeymoon wears off really quickly and we're like, oh gosh, like, what did we get into? But I think that it's really important for our host homes and our program management, all of us, to remember that our clients are coming to us with a bag of tools that have worked for them. So when they go into a new home and they're screaming, or maybe they are sneaking food, or whatever the behaviors are that are so aggravating or hard to handle in the moment, like, all of those behaviors are a story. So we see a kid who's sneaking food, but in all reality, little Joey had food withheld from him or did not have access to food. Or we see a teen boy that refuses to do anything but lay in bed and doesn't want to go to day program or go to school. But in all reality, that behavior is a story of somebody who was criticized really harshly for making mistakes or didn't do well in school before coming to us. And so when we get new clients and we see these behaviors, to remember that the behaviors are all connected to a story, which kind of goes back to what you had mentioned earlier about seeing them from, when we first got them, like, where they came from. If you understand that, then it's a lot easier to navigate all of those new things when they do get there to the home. And for the host home to know that sometimes we don't know the story, and sometimes it's a mystery, and we get to try to solve the mystery together to find out where that behavior is coming from. But everybody has behaviors, clients, homes, neurotypical, developmentally disabled, everybody has behaviors, and it's trying to find out the actual root cause of it. And if they didn't need those supports, we would not have them to support them. And so there's no such thing as a perfect host home, and there's no such thing as a perfect client. And but we do have some pretty perfect humans that we get to deal with, and we just have to figure out how to best support them. But it is very rare that even the easiest client doesn't have some challenges that the host home has to navigate.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that some of those challenges show up on day one, and some of those challenges can show up in year 3 or 4.
Yes.
It just depends on what those challenges are. And so with new placements and the challenges that we see, what is your advice to new homes? They have this new individual in their home. What is your advice for them? Because I know we talk about the individual a lot. What advice do you have specifically for the home to be able to get through that challenging season until everyone's more comfortable and, a routine's established?
I would say definitely lean on your support team. So your Restoring Hope support team, they, for the most part, our program managers are pretty seasoned. They've been in the field in some aspect or another, and they could, before coming to Restoring Hope, and then several have been here several years. So be able to use them as a resource, I think is very important, but also know that it's okay to not be perfect. Like, it is okay for there to be hard days, and it is okay for there to be days where you're like, I feel like I didn't succeed at all today. That, today was just full of those behaviors or full of tears. I'm sure there's lots of days full of tears, and that's okay, because just like bringing home your own baby, like, you have to figure that other human out, and it takes time to do that. We don't expect perfection. Like, we expect homes that have the heart and the dedication to those individuals. And like I always say, if you have the heart to do this job, we'll teach you the paperwork. And I feel like that is so true, like, regardless of the type of individual. If you can open up your home and open up your heart to that person, we can teach you how to do all of the other stuff. And the days do get easier. And then you might have another hard day thrown in there from time to time. But that's why we're here too, is to help you help them.
Okay. So one of the pieces that we do through the onboarding is the home study. And that really gives the homes an opportunity to speak to how their home is set up, who's in their home, the interests of their home, logistics, everything about this specific home. And we really utilize that for the placement process. But I think that another place that we really lean on that is through the relief process. And so what advice do you have, or what have you seen for new homes in either trying to get their feet wet by doing relief, or, exploring the type of individuals they would want to support through the relief process?
Do relief. Do lots of relief. When you're waiting to get a full-time client, you could have worked at a school or an ISL or, a group home, wherever you were before becoming a host home. It is different to have them in your home. So I 100% do relief, do respite. If you don't have another individual in your home that you're supporting, do respite. And really the reason for that is you have an idea of what you think will fit into the dynamic of your home. And then after you've been doing relief or respite, you can see that maybe your options or your criteria for a client might become more broad instead of being so narrow. We have a program manager that works with us that also does relief. And when she first started, she said, I only want to deal with adults. I don't want to deal with kids. Kids are a lot of work. And so she did some relief. And now she's like, I only want to do relief for kids. Kids are so much easier. So I think it depends. And then also to realize too, if you think that, you're only interested in a 12-year-old little girl, that, maybe there's certain individuals that are in their 30s that, female who's in her 30s that you're like, oh, wow, I really enjoyed supporting them too. So it just kind of opens your mind up a little bit to the potential of different types of clients.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because I know I see the families that when they came to Restoring Hope, for whatever reason, brought them, to our path of Restoring Hope. They came in with the expectations of, I'm going to support a specific person, or I want to support children, or I only want to support adults. And then they built relationships with individuals either through like Restoring Hope parties or through Relief, through other Restoring Hope families. And then, years later after being here, they support people way different than what they thought they were going to initially. And so I think, being open to that and going through the process of relief and respite definitely gives families a better idea of individuals that do fit best into their family dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, once you go through and you realize the similarities with humans it doesn't really matter the age in a lot of situations. Sometimes, you have an individual who at 12 years old was a certain way and now they're 22 years old and developmentally they're still the same as they were when they were 12. And so they're bigger, obviously, but I think that otherwise over time, it becomes more evident that age may not be the only qualifying factor in supporting an individual.
Yep. Good point. Okay. So you've been doing placements a long time. Without using names in families, like what is your one placement that just absolutely sticks out to you?
Oh, gosh. Oh, there's so many. One that I just can't get past, like one that I think about a lot is, teen boys are hard. We have a lot of teen boys at Restoring Hope. But typically, I read plans for a teen boy and it's very quick that I'm like, nope, like we can't do that here. Like they need a higher level of care. But we had one that was an emergency placement in St. Louis, and I had received the plan and I was like, I don't think we can support them. I think they need a higher level of care, maybe to behavioral. I was just really, really nervous about it. And we get out there and there was several clients that we placed through this situation, and kind of a last minute decision. We went and met this kiddo and I instantly was like, I can't believe that I almost said no. And it was such a strong feeling that I was like, well, let's get in my car. You're going back to Sedalia with me. And so he got in the car and we stopped at Taco Bell, and then we made our way to Sedalia and gave him a host home, and it wasn't planned at all. And I still see him, from time to time, and he's, always like, I haven't seen you in a long time. I miss you. How have you been? And I just can't believe that I almost passed on somebody as cool as him. And so it's just one of those situations where you look at paper and you can read something about somebody and have an idea of who you think they are. And then you meet them in person and you're like, wow, like those were just words on paper, and you just need people who believe in you. Like you need something more than you've ever been offered before. And we were able to do that. So,
and knowing that individual, like you found his placement on day one and he's been there ever since. And so, just as much as you had to give him a chance, like that host home had to be willing to take a chance and to trust you that they had worked with you long enough that he deserved a chance. And I mean, he's been super successful in that home and in the program ever since.
And I would hope that we have him forever. And if in a couple years he needs to move on, I will never feel sad for taking a chance on him. So he's a pretty cool guy, and we have, 50 others that are just as cool as he is that have unique stories. But his is just the craziness of just walking in there and saying, all right, get in the car, let's go. You have your bags? And he did. We left.
Which I think speaks to just the uncertainty of placements is every day looks different. One day could be that you're working through the referrals and setting up meet and greets and going to visit them. And then the next day, you're there and you're making phone calls to put all his belongings in your car and drive him, to ultimately at least his home at this point for a long time.
Yeah, you in the placement department of Restoring Hope. If you need a structured schedule of 9 to 5, it's not the department for you because, there's days that I wake up and I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to Kansas City today and I'll go load up the car and go. And I love that. It works great for me. And, for the things that I enjoy about my job. But it may not be, for everybody.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love the adrenaline, the adventure. Placements are completely an adventure. Every day it's an adventure. Every time we get a referral, it's an adventure. Some adventures, most of the adventures are definitely worth taking the risk on. So.
And I think that, like you said, the risk, there's always the unknowns with placement because the individuals are, they need services for a reason. And so they're coming to us with, like you said, tools that they've used historically, things that have happened to them. So with kind of knowing that, what are those factors that really, through the placement process, eliminate them from being a good fit to the level of care that a host home is able to provide?
So one of the biggest things that I look for, and I know the other members of our placement team look at, is do they want to be in a host home? Because ultimately, if they don't want to be in a host home and they don't want a family, then we're setting them up for failure.
Sure.
So that's usually one of the biggest things I look for, especially in adults that we support and older teens, is do they want this? If they want it, then they'll work through some of those challenging days because they want to be with a family. But aside from that, because we have a lot of clients that can't necessarily verbalize those things, it would be, levels of like aggression. And there's different types of aggression, and that's why meeting people in person is really important, because they might be labeled as aggressive, but it could be they swat at your hand versus head banging or, things like that. So we really just kind of look at it at the level of which that takes place. Perping behaviors, that would be something too. That would be something we would look at. A huge percentage of the people we support have had, forms of physical trauma and physical abuse. So in that, sexual in nature as well, and making sure that we have homes that are equipped to deal with that. But like we had mentioned earlier, like there's times that we don't know the whole story.
Right.
And so we might be seeing some behaviors that are being displayed that we're like, whoa, like where did that come from? And, try to solve that mystery. But I think that we've done a really good job over the years being able to identify red flags that would make somebody not super successful in a host home. And also being giving ourselves grace when we don't know those things before we get into it. Or knowing that humans have free will and they can always change their mind. They can always display behaviors that were never recorded because we're humans. So there's not a perfect checklist where we can say, oh, they hit 5 boxes, they're perfect for a host home, but we can narrow it down pretty close to whether or not they are safe to be in a home. So that's, ultimately what we want is we want clients who are safe.
With some of our families that we have at Restoring Hope, veteran homes and new homes, we think we know we have the right fit. So what does it look like when we go through the placement process, we think we've found the right fit, and then a few days in, we're not feeling like it's a good fit? What happens then? So
we try to make sure that we have more than one option for the clients that we support. That can be kind of frustrating for our homes when they're waiting for a placement, because they're like, well, I went and met them and they didn't pick me. And, there is that, the upfront work that goes into it to not be picked, but that's for a reason, because we want them to be long-term in a home. But we don't always get it right. And sometimes what we think will work doesn't work. And I feel like I always say, like with placements, like we're not playing checkers, we're playing chess. Like we're trying to figure out all the dynamics that we can put together to make somebody successful. And just like not every client is perfect for the host home model, it may just be that not every client is perfect for, that particular home. So, especially with some of our seasoned homes that have supported a lot of different individuals, they can get very frustrated if they get a client that isn't a good fit for them. And it says nothing negative about that home and nothing negative about that client. It just says that we need to look at a different home, and that's completely okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good point as far as it really is finding that best possible match. I know years ago, I think of a girl that we still support, and we went through the placement process, and she had 3 homes, and she had the capability, and her team really wanted to give her the control to decide where her placement was going to be, which is so amazing when a team can do that, because it really gives that individual the buy-in and the control to make the decision that works best for them. And just like us, like they can make the wrong decision too, but at least they had investment in it because they had the ability to do it. And on my side of it, on the placement side, I thought this one home was a for sure shoe-in, like they were going to be who she picked. And she went through all of the pre-placement visits. I met with her and the team after, and she didn't pick the home that I had that I thought she was going to pick. And I asked for the feedback. I'm like, why did you pick this home that you picked, which was a great option. It just wasn't the option that I felt like she was going to pick. And she said, the home that I thought she was going to pick, she said, they're too perfect. She said, I grew up in a home that it was okay for you to wear your shoes and to leave your dirty clothes on the floor and to not eat at the dinner table. And those things were important to her because that's what she felt like home was. For me, I thought she was going to pick the other home, and it was what she thought was too perfect. There wasn't dirty clothes on the floor. It didn't feel lived in. And so her comfort level looked different than what I thought her comfort level was. And so she was able to articulate that, which I felt like was so great for her to be able to do that. But it also gave us insight into what they're expecting and what they want in a home is going to be different because their experiences are different than ours. So, and I know you have hundreds of examples just like that to, be able to share. Earlier you mentioned, the individual that kind of was an emergency type situation. You decided, on paper, things didn't look good, but you're willing to give them a chance. When we receive that paperwork, what weight do you put in to that paperwork that we receive?
So I definitely look it over. I do want to see some historical information. There's typically like a timeline, in the plans. But the thing is, a plan is only as good as the person who wrote the plan. So, we can have a plan that is like you couldn't read anything more perfect to describe an individual. It might as well be their autobiography. That's how good it is. And then we have some plans where, it's missing information. Like we don't know anything. So I take stock in it in the sense that like, I do want to see what's in there. I think things that are important to know are like medical emergencies, like if they self-harming behaviors, things like that will be listed in a plan. If there's a behavior section, if they've filled that part out, like a behavior plan, obviously like that's super important to read because those things are pretty detailed. But for the most part, if it's a standard ISP, I take a lot more stock into the conversation I have over the phone with the support coordinator or with the guardian, or that time that I lay eyes on that client and I ask them to tell me what makes them awesome, because that's the first thing I do. I sit down and I say, hi, I'm Amber with Restoring Hope. Do you know why I'm here? Tell me why you're awesome. And then they get to sit there and tell me all the things about them that is not listed in an ISP.
And I think that you're right. Those plans are only as good as the person writing it and also the person giving feedback. So we have a lot of individuals that are removed from homes because of abuse and neglect. And so the individuals that may have been the reporter for that were ultimately in settings that were abusive or neglectful. And so I think it's really important when we get that information to sort through who was providing that information, because it may not be accurate based on them in a setting that is set up for success and support. So I think that especially on those ones that have been removed, there was a reason why they were removed.
And perception is reality. Like if you're the person who's reporting that information, it's your perception of events. It's your perception of them in, whatever setting it is that you've known them. And then you're relaying that information. And we want it to all be facts. Obviously, like it should all be documented facts, but, we're receiving those facts from individuals with their own perception of the situation. And so I think that's always keeping that in mind.
Okay, so if I'm a family that is interested in signing up to become a host home and ultimately a caregiver for Restoring Hope, what do you offer them? What advice do you give to have them take that leap?
I think the first thing would be to know the intentions of it. Like, is your intention that you want to be able to stay home with your children? And so now you can, work from home, supporting, somebody else in the home and get to be a stay-at-home mom? Is it your intention, maybe you were in foster care and now you want to give back, which that happened. We have several host homes that, were in the system themselves and they're giving back. I think that that's why you're here is very important. But ultimately, if you're here for the right reasons, we can teach you how to do all of the other stuff. And I don't think that it does not go unnoticed by Restoring Hope's management team that, we're out there, changing lives every single day. Like that's essentially our job. Like we have the coolest jobs ever, but we're changing families' lives too, because this might be the best job that a home has ever had. And you get to work from home doing this big, giant work that blows the minds of people who aren't in this field of like what we're really doing. And you get to be a part of that. And, you didn't go to college and you're having direct impact on lives. And so I know that we talk a lot about the lives that we've changed for those individuals we support, but we've changed lives of families too. And, that's something that I think about a lot. And I think about homes, like you had mentioned earlier about, the clients, not necessarily wanting perfection. And there's been so many times that, we've given off options of homes and it might be, this big, beautiful, fancy home in a gated community. And they pick the home that is, out in the country and they have chickens and ducks and, it's a completely different lifestyle. And, those families get to do the same kind of work, and our clients are looking for real people and real families, and it looks lots of different ways. And I think that that's one of my favorite parts of my job is, the clients obviously, but seeing these homes that, they've got to change, they get to go on trips, they get to buy new homes. We've had host homes able to build a new home and have, with their client in mind, in their own special bedroom. And like, their lives are better too. And, we want to enrich the lives of our individuals, but here we are enriching the lives of these families. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And probably a point we don't talk about near as often as, the lives that we can change on the client side of things.
Yeah. And we have that connection to our clients. And at the end of the day, we're responsible for them. But I think it's really neat that, I have a dozen host homes I could reach out to right now and just be like, hey, my dog is at the vet. I can't get back in time. Will you pick them up? Like they're our family too. And, I have one host home that makes all the cupcakes for my kids' events, and another host home that, sends us pictures of her dog because she knows that my child likes labs. And, I just think that we provide family to these clients, but we're also just one big family ourselves. And, I think it's neat. I think anybody that has been with Restoring Hope for any amount of time has built a network around themselves of people who are like-minded. And that's, when we're outside of Restoring Hope and we tell people what we do for a living, they're kind of like, what is that? But in Restoring Hope, like we're all doing the same thing and we all have the same purpose and the same agenda. And it's it's amazing. And we definitely see that with our conferences and our community events and things that we do, and getting to see all of these people from all different walks of life who are all living a better version of their life because they're a part of this. And it's changed my life. It's changed homes' lives. It changes clients' lives. And I think that's pretty special.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you hit it when you said purpose. And just as a society, and there's statistics out there as far as people want to do a job with purpose. And we talk about it frequently, within our management meetings, how that's so easy to check that box within Restoring Hope. We don't have to focus on the purpose because our individuals, our families, all of our lives, the purpose is we get to change people's lives every single day. And we don't have to look to create that. It's our mission. It's everything that we do within the organization.
I think that it's neat when you look at the reason why our clients have come to us, and it's because of a broken relationship in some aspect, whether it's abuse, neglect, or, a family that has fallen apart in some aspect. And the one thing that heals trauma is relationship. And so we're taking them from a broken relationship and giving them a healthy relationship and literally healing brains. And I think that, all of that kind of gets overlooked for the day-to-day checking the boxes. And did I document in therapy? Yeah, you documented in therapy, but you also are healing somebody's brain. Like, you are a superhero. And I think that's, we lose sight of that sometimes, especially during times of survey when it's all about checking those boxes. And in all reality, we're doing something so much bigger than that.
Yeah, I think that is easy to lose sight of, especially when, auditors are coming in, coordinators, guardians, whoever those people are, that their roles are more focused on that paperwork. It can be really easy to be frustrated with that piece of it. And again, it's an important piece of it, but ultimately we get to change the lives of individuals and change the trajectory of their entire life. We just know that the paperwork is a piece that goes along with that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so just to close, I know just from doing placements originally when I started at Restoring Hope. Yeah,
you didn't touch on that you were the original placement coordinator.
Yes. So in placements, like when I started at Restoring Hope, we really needed to evolve to that next step of putting some systems and processes in place. So I took that on from Chuck, one of the owners, and then obviously handed it off to you and the team very quickly. And you guys have made it, bigger and better than ever. I know when I think of placements, my brain instantly goes to the first person I met when I was doing placements. And my thought process, I remember walking into a residential, of course, it was a young teen boy. I did not feel equipped to be making this big decision for what his life was going to look like. Give me your story of the first placement that you did at Restoring Hope.
So the first one that I think I did mostly independent, because I have to say, I did definitely was under your wing for a little bit of time. But the first one that I remember doing independently was an emergency placement for a sibling set of 3 little boys in our Springfield area. And it was kind of shocking because it was the youngest client I think that we'd gotten a referral
at the
for.
Time, yeah.
Yeah, I see he was not quite 3. And their story was, I didn't think it was real. Like, I thought that things like that were stories like that were for TV. That's Dateline, that's 2020. But, these boys were left at home and mom dropped food off on Thursdays. And that was the interaction they had with an adult. And they were 2, 4, and 6. And I walked into the CD office and I saw the older 2 boys, and the little one was hiding underneath a little toy slide. And I got on my belly and I laid down there and I kind of put my head to the side and I looked at him, and I just knew in that moment, he's got to have a family. So he kind of changed, that little face kind of changed my life. And I knew what we were doing was really important, but seeing him, you realize how important that really is. And they are a success story. The 3 of them got, the services they needed, they got the family they needed, and they were adopted. So they're not even with us anymore. And those adoptions and reunifications are it stinks to lose them, but if we lost every single one like that, then we're doing the right work. So
Right. And just knowing those 3 boys and obviously the family that ultimately adopted them, you're right. Like in the placement world, you get a front row seat to the worst stories. And I remember that story along with, a dozen other stories that you instantly think like, this is what's going on in the world we live in. And, I feel like we don't necessarily think of it as it's in our communities, it's in our state. And the reality is it's everywhere.
It's in our backyard.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think a lot of people can't wrap their mind around is that, we see these stories on the news and, no one will ever know that that's who it is. But that kid that was removed from that parent that did that, they're in a host home right now. And it puts perspective on a lot of things. A lot of us live in our little bubbles. And I think that the supports that we provide to the people we provide is so big picture. It doesn't just happen in New York. It doesn't happen just in LA. It's happening in Benton County, Missouri. Like it's happening right here in your backyard. And I think that until people are all aware of it, it goes unnoticed. But I think we're doing a really good job of Restoring Hope is doing a great job of making the communities very aware that these people are here and they deserve to be in the community and they deserve a purposeful, meaningful life. And that's what we're doing every single day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Amber, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I appreciate the time. And I know that placement worlds are busy right now.
Yes.
And family onboarding process is really busy. So I appreciate you taking the time and sitting down with me.
Yeah. Thank you.